Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to this world premiere presentation of United Universalist Congregation. Sorry, inside joke. My name is Reverend David Kraemer, minister at this congregation. So great to see all of you on this beautiful, beautiful morning. Helping with today's service, Geoff Blankenmeyer, who actually won this service topic at the auction last spring. So we'll hear from Geoff in a little bit. And Alex Chilsen, of course, our musician, and Aaron Hurwitz, our tech. A couple of things to lift up. There were a lot of announcements on the wall and also in your Tuesday email. Please pay attention. We've got Jamie's concert coming up here. We've got Marcia's thing next Saturday. Safety training on November 5th. Ladies' Night Out is coming up this week. And Milwaukee County will be signing a new declaration, is that the right word? Affirming the rights of nature. This is a first in Wisconsin. It's an interesting concept that applies rights to land, waters, just like you and I. So this is sort of like Citizens United applied to nature, and which gives nature legal status. So kind of a big deal. Take a look at that. There's also stuff coming up on white Christian nationalism from Sophia and here. So pay attention to your posts. There's a lot going on. I think that's about all I want to lift up to begin with. We have a lot going on here this morning as well. Let's center ourselves for worship. Jake, would you be my chalice lighter this morning? Okay. May this flame kindle within us the warmth of compassion, the glow of love, the fire of commitment, and the light of truth. Here together we scatter and nurture seeds of spirit, service, and community. Let's sing together. Hymn number 114 in your hymnals or here on the wall, Forward Through the Ages. You might recognize the tune. chose that hymn because we have been talking all this month about heritage, and today we will talk about legacy, and the Forward Through the Ages thing struck me, but boy, that's a ghastly hymn, even with new lyrics. It's a great day at United. Today we get to welcome in a new member. At this moment, I would like to invite Susan Bergman and Declan O'Connor to come forward, please.
That's right, yeah. It's me. Declan, it is a joy to welcome you into our community of memory and hope. Will you walk together with us, sharing the joys and responsibilities of membership?
I will.
Members of United Unitarian Universalist Congregation, will you welcome Declan into our congregation? Will you reach out to Declan and community, open to them unique gifts and perspectives, remembering that we were all new here once ourselves?
Yes.
Declan, becoming a member of this congregation is an important step, but it is only a first step. As Unitarian Universalists, we are all asked to grow in understanding and to find and share our special gifts with one another. Ours is a shared ministry. Each of us has a critical role to play. We need you, and we are grateful you have chosen to join your spiritual path with ours. And now I invite you to sign the book.
Just do it right there.
Try right
That's it, that's all. We've
That's
got
it.
it dated. Yeah. Pretty easy. We make it easy. Declan, we offer you a flower as a symbol of the unique gifts you bring to our congregation and of the gifts we hope you receive from us in return.
Thank you.
Welcome to United Unitarian Universalist Congregation. Let's give them a round of applause.
And I to give you a hug.
Great, thank you so much. Okay, so I have a story. Story is remember. There is a typo in your order of service if you are looking. It is by Joy Harjo, not John Harjo. Joy Harjo was Poet Laureate of the United States. Some beautiful artwork in this. Remember the sky that you were born under. Know each of the stars' stories. Remember the moon. Know who she is. Remember the sun's birth at dawn. That is the strongest point of time. Remember sundown and the giving way to night. Remember your birth, how your mother struggled to give you form and breath. You are evidence of her life and her mother's and hers. Remember your father. He is your life also. Remember the earth, whose skin you are. Red earth, black earth, yellow earth, white earth, brown earth. We are earth. Remember the plants, trees, animal life, who all have their tribes, their families, their histories too. Talk to them. Listen to them. They are alive poems. Remember the wind. Remember her voice. She knows the origin of this universe. Remember, you are all people, and all people are you. Remember, all is in motion, is growing in you. Remember, you are this universe. And this universe is you. Remember. That's my story.
Sing and rejoice, sing and rejoice. Let all things living now sing and rejoice.
Thanks. We'll come back on walking with you. I have been attending some memorial services for the last few months, and even into just Friday, I picked up a memorial service for a person who had been attending UU West in Brookfield, and Julie Stoneberg, the minister there, was out of town, and so I filled in for her. I did not know the man, but as always, the memorial service is deeply moving and gets me thinking. He was an interesting man who died. He was only 55, but he was a rock and roller and stand-up comedian. And if you have noticed, the tie that I am wearing today, it features Taz from the Bugs Bunny comic strip. I have another one that's even louder, and because of who he was, I was able to wear the Taz tie to a funeral on Friday. How many times can you do that? In the course of all this grief, there are a couple of poems that have been on my mind, and I want to share them now as our meditation, as our prayer. They do address, I think, in some way, the theme of legacy and heritage that we have been diving into all month. And I've not had a chance to do these two particular ones, so here they are. The first is from Wendell Berry from the Sabbath Poems. No, no, there is no going back. Less and less you are that possibility you were. More and more you have become those lives and deaths that have belonged to you. You have become a sort of a grave, containing much that was and is no more in time, beloved, then, now, and always. And so you have become a sort of tree, standing over the grave. Now more than ever, you can be generous toward each day that comes young to disappear forever and yet remain unaging in the mind. Every day, you have less reason not to give yourself away. I like that poem because it seems on first blush to be about the person who has died, but it is not. It is about all of us who live. The second poem is The Dead from Susan Mitchell. At night, the dead come down to the river to drink. They unburden themselves of their fears, their worries for us. They take out the old photographs. They pat the lines in our hands and tell our futures, which are cracked and yellow. Some dead find their way to our houses. They go up to the attics. They read the letters they sent us, insatiable for signs of their love. They tell each other stories. They make so much noise. They wake us, as they did when we were children, and they stayed up drinking all night in the kitchen. Let's honor our own ancestors in whatever way we can today and again next week. We'll talk a little bit more about that. Right now, it's time to take up an offering as we do each Sunday, part of what it takes to sustain this ministry, this sense of place, this community that we enjoy.
David mentioned today's service is my auction item on legacy. When David and I sat down to discuss this service, he reminded me that there is legacy, but there is also heritage. Legacy is what you pass down to your descendants. Heritage is what your ancestors passed down to you. And this book is my legacy, to be passed down to my son and hopefully his grandsons and on down the line. My paternal grandfather passed away in 1992. When we were getting his affairs in order, I came across a manila envelope that contained papers about his grandfather, Martin Blankmeyer, who lived in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. I decided to finish his work, and what you saw was the result of that effort that, again, I hope to pass down to my son, and I hope he remembers to do the same. Here is a brief synopsis. European familial heritage began in the 12th century when surnames became common. Surnames were a person's identity based on their occupation. Blankmeyer translates into proprietor of the white farm. Although I don't come from nobility, my ancestors were considered to be the most trusted servant. As generations passed, my line of Blankmeyers moved into the guild economy. Guildsmen were part of the elect Mittelstadt, or the propertied middle estate. The process of reaching that status began at age 14 for boys when they received an education, obtained an occupation, and eventually property, marriage, and family. Only then were they considered to become the elect of the Mittelstadt. The Napoleonic Wars dismantled that system, and much of the Mittelstadt fell into penury. Eventually, the disenfranchised revolted. Failing that, many then emigrated. My great-great-grandfather, Martin Blankmeyer, eventually booked passage with his sister to Castle Garden, New York in 1850, where a misprint on the ship's manifest changed our family name forever to Blankenmeyer. They settled in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, where he was able to practice Mittelstadt traditions of his heritage. And the legacy of that heritage has been passed down through the next 5 generations, me being the 5th. If I was to assess my son's life, I would say that he has lived up to the legacy of his heritage, whether he knows it or not. And I think I'm going to slip these notes into the book so he doesn't have to read the whole thing.
Thank you, Jeff. When I was a teenager, I did some research into the etymology of my own last name, Kraemer. It comes from the root cram, which was a small basket, like one you would use to carry things you grew on the farm to town to sell. As the economy developed and more permanent shops were set up, Kraemer came to mean shopkeeper or merchant. But back to the original, and because my more recent forebears for a while raised chickens, I came to a kind of a made-up definition of Kraemer as one who carries eggs to town in a small basket. Later, as a late adolescent, I traveled the country for a few years, living essentially out of a backpack, and so I came to a personal translation of Kraemer as backpacker, laden not with eggs, but a sleeping bag. What I know of my own heritage is that I am almost completely made up of German farm stock. When my relatives tell this story, they say, well, Grandma on Mom's side had some Austrian in her, but otherwise you're all German. On my mom's side, my ancestors came from Prussia and northern Germany. There's a direct branch of the family tree that owned and operated a mill for several generations, and they were brewers as well. They were among the civic leaders of the day in a developing market economy. Still, they were people who worked with their hands. On my dad's side, I know less detail, but there are some colorful characters. They came from further south in Germany, I believe more toward Alsace. In that line, I know for a fact that I am more closely related to Adam and Eve than any of you. One of my relatives was named Adam Kraemer, who married a woman named Eve sometime in the late 1800s. So there. I wonder what their life was like. And I don't know that they named their kids Cain and Abel. Both sides immigrated to the United States in the 1800s and came directly to Wisconsin. I have a few relatives who branched out to Montana, but otherwise they were all dairy farmers, a part of the legacy of Wisconsin as the dairy state. I did not grow up on the farm, but my cousins all did, and I know from direct experience when I would go visit the work it takes to milk cows. Day in, day out, early, late, and in between back-breaking labor, hauling grain, shoveling manure, cutting hay, fixing the machinery with grease and knuckle-busting tools and baling wire. You have to be determined, maybe compulsive, to be a dairy farmer. So I know where this comes from in me. Those German farmers also could be hard-headed. Some were not so nice to be around. That's a legacy I have worked to change in my life, to be more kind. My own father and mother were among the first generation to leave the farm, to go to college, get degrees, professional jobs. Education is a strong value in my family too, reaching back before Mom and Dad. Many of the women, my mom, my aunts, my grandma, worked as teachers in one-room schoolhouses. And I know that music also was a value in my family. Again, it was mostly the women who kept this going, who played piano at church or studied music at college. But my grandpa on my mom's side had a violin. I know he once played. It sat unused in the case most of the time I was growing up, but I would find it in an upstairs bedroom and take it out to admire from time to time. From this, it's maybe not surprising that nearly all of my closest friends now are teachers and musicians. And I love cheese. In talking with Geoff about this service, we noted the difference between heritage, which is our theme this month, and legacy, which was Geoff's choice, as he described. One way of thinking of this is that heritage is about what has come before. Legacy is about what comes after. Heritage you can't control, sort of. Legacy, though, maybe is something that you can choose, or at least suggest by the choices that you make. Both are tied up together. You are the legacy of your ancestors. They pass through you. So in some sense, legacy comes before as well as it comes after. And heritage, too, means that all the choices you make in life, ditching your ancestors' voting patterns, for example, to become a socialist, actually reflect back on them. You would not have been self-reflective enough to consider the power of collective bargaining, for example, if they had not also valued education, thinking for oneself. Our Soul Matters small group packet addresses this too, in a quote from Ralph Ellison. Some people are your relatives, he says, but others are your ancestors. And you choose the ones you want to have as ancestors. You create yourself out of these values. My take on this is that you create yourself out of the stories you choose to tell. Some of these may be stories of your ancestors, the ones who came across on the Mayflower or fought in the Civil War, or were the first ones to leave the farm, go off to college. Also, the stories that shape your character. My grandmother, for example, who remarried at age 84 after my grandfather had died. The courage that took, the optimism, that's a story I love to tell. or of my grandfather on the other side, a tall, strong, stoic farmer who literally came in from the barn and learned to can tomatoes, bake cookies, wear an apron after Grandma suffered a debilitating stroke. That's a legacy I want to pass on. If Ellison's observation is true, we can alter the legacy. We can change the narrative by which stories we choose to tell, which ancestors we choose to acknowledge. The wolf that thrives is the one you feed, so choose wisely. There also are stories we tell about the future, about the world we dream about what we want for ourselves and for future generations. This is how we write the next chapters in the story our ancestors began. They had a chance to establish characters and a bit of a narrative. We get to say where the plot line twists. This is a part of our legacy, I think, as Unitarian Universalists. We are the plot twisters of history. Among our ancestors are those who have questioned, who have challenged the status quo, who have seen possibility in place of predestination, hope instead of hell, an interconnected web instead of fractured loneliness. A large part of our UU legacy is change. There is another sense of legacy that sustains this church. We enjoy a healthy endowment established by a woman named Sarah Eng, whose picture is in the history case at the back of the sanctuary. And also trusts established by Alice Ryder and Harriet Steele. We don't talk about this often, but those funds allow us to enjoy this beautiful space, and they help pay my salary. As you consider your own legacy and the legacy of this congregation, you too might consider a bequest. Next week, we will round out this month of heritage by inviting everyone to consider and share a bit of your own story. Emma Keppel and Meg Whaley will lead. You all are invited to bring in a memento or an artifact or something that reminds you of an ancestor or ancestors who have shaped your story. You will be invited to share a few words like we do for water communion or joys and sorrows, and place your item on an ancestor's altar. You also are invited to consider the term ancestor broadly. It might not be a blood relative you wish to honor, but an influential writer or a mentor or a tree. Whatever you bring in. This will become part of your legacy, too, as you tell us about your story. Maybe the best legacy we can hope for is an old Scout maxim. Leave the campsite in better shape than you found it. Build capacity, understand the past, honor the future, sing some old songs, but sing some new ones, too. Let's sing together. Once again, I'm going to sing Building a New Way. It is hymn number 1017 in the teal hymnal or here on the wall. Please rise in body or spirit.
Strong.
I guess I haven't been doing this long enough. I have closing words that I thought we would share as a responsive reading, so that'll take a little bit more time. Freebird? At Friday's funeral, I told you the guy was a rock and roller, and we had some music. His sister played a Bach violin piece, and then there were a couple other pieces, and they were very folky. And one of the musicians in his reflection talked about how he taught the man who had died how to play guitar long ago, and the first tune he learned was "Smoke on the Water," and so yeah. Yeah, and so he played just a couple of lines, and so I thought, yeah, great, all right, we got a little metal into your funeral, dude. Here's our reading. I'll read the regular type. Please follow with the italics. If we have the wisdom to survive, to stand like slow-growing trees on a ruined place, if we will make our seasons welcome here, asking not too much of earth or heaven, and a long time after we are dead, the lives of our lives prepare will live here. There are houses strongly placed upon the valley sides. Fields and gardens rich in the windows. The river will run clear as we'll never know it. And over it, birdsong like a canopy. On the levels of the hills will be green meadows, soft bells, and moony shade. On the steeps where greed and ignorance cut down the old forest. An old forest will stand, its rich leafy fold drifting on its roots. The veins of forgotten springs will have opened, families will be singing in the fields. In their voices they will hear of music risen out of the ground. They will take nothing from the ground, they will not return, whatever their grief at parting. Memory into the valley will spread over like a grove, and memory will grow into legend, legend into song. The abundance of this place, the songs of its people and its birds, will be health and wisdom and indwelling light. Thank you all. Please join for coffee and conversation after the service, after Alex's postlude, and when you go in love, seek justice, find peace.
There are places I'll remember all my life, though some have changed, some forever, not for better. Some have gone and some remain. All these places have their moments with lovers and friends I can still recall. Some are dead and some are living. In my life I've loved them all. people and things that went before. I know I'll often think about them in my life. I love you more. Though I know I'll never lose affection for people and things that went before, I know I'll often think about them in my life. I love you more in my life. In my life, in my life, I love you more.
Thank you.